Earning is the lost art, and people want to win money and all this kind of thing. But really to fall in love with actually the process of going out and doing a service and getting paid for it, very few people want to do it, it seems, these days.
Hello and welcome to Trillions. I am your host, Alyse Grace, and today I'm chatting with MOCKER, founder of Infinite Prosperity and also School of Mastery. Lewis bought his first stocks and started trading around age 9, sold items on eBay, taught others how to trade Forex, and became a millionaire before 30. He gives some great insight into the importance of mentors, doing what you love, investing, and financial independence. Golly gosh, this one is a doozy. I'm sitting here with Lewis MOCKER, founder of IP, Infinite Prosperity, and School of Mastery. Thank you, Lewis, for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Lewis, you dabbled and did a few little businesses in your early years, in your childhood. Some of them you shared on your socials, and they're quite funny. So tell us a bit about some of your earliest memories of being a businessman.
Well, one of my first businesses that I can remember, one of my first memories even, was when I was a kid. I used to have like a National Geographic book, and what it had all the different animals, so one page per animal: the giraffe, the cheetah, the elephant, all the thing. And what I did there one day, I remember as a kid, was I got a little pen and pad, and I used to draw out the pictures of the animals, and I used to write the name in, and I used to give it sort of some key points, the key characteristics of the animal, and it used to be like this handwritten thing that I would produce.
Yeah.
Then I would take it to my mum, and then I would sell it to her. And I remember selling, my favorite animal was the cheetah, and I remember selling my little cheetah document here to my mum for $2.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I actually produced something, created something, and then sold it and made income. And it's curious that that's kind of exactly what I do today. What I do is I study something, I learn it, I master it, I add my own seasoning, sauces and sides, and then I go and sell it, go and produce it. And so that was one of my first memories, one of my first businesses. Later in high school, I was always dabbling and doing different little things, but in high school, I was one of the first kids to get the broadband internet. And I got onto the porn sites early, and when the other kids, kids my age, we were, the guys were getting interested in that stuff, but they didn't have the internet connection, and it wasn't a thing, and which today it probably is. But I got the fast internet, so I used to download these little clips and these little 30-second snippets, burn it onto a disc, and it used to tally up to like 20 minutes or something like this. And then I took the discs to school. I called it Lewis's Porn Palace.
Nice.
And then I sold them for $10 a pop. This was in grade 8, so that was 2002, first year of high school. And I used to sell quite a number of them. I ended up with 2 volumes of it, Porn Palace Volume 1 and Volume 2. And then eventually that got shut down by the teachers. They didn't really like that. But this has kind of been doing these little businesses all through my life, really. End of high school, I got more into eBay. And that was when I started taking it a bit more seriously. I actually got an ABN, and I went through the correct procedures to actually set up a business, and that's when I got more and more serious, and then it just kept going on from there, really.
Yeah, cool. So do you know why you were entrepreneurial from a young age? What was the thinking behind selling things?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that my parents were necessarily entrepreneurial. I would say that whatever I did, they were very supportive of, and so if I had an idea, I would let my dad know, and he would say, "That's great. You can do anything that you set your mind to." Was something that he affirmed to me regularly, and he tended to support anything that I got into. Early on, I know that I loved cars, and I knew that I wanted nice cars, and so that was probably a little bit of an underlying motivation, because I knew that somehow and at some time to get the cars, you had to do a business to make enough income to get them. So that was probably a little bit of a motivator for me as well.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so your dad was really supportive when you were younger.
Very much, yeah.
And I'm aware that he taught you about trading and investing in stocks. So can you teach us or tell us a little bit about how old you were when you first got into stock trading?
Yeah, so from probably around 7 years of age, I realized that for birthday and Christmas, the toys that I was getting for these kind of occasions were, I already got all the toys that I wanted.
They're usually pretty crap anyway.
And they're crappy,
Yeah.
Exactly right. And look, if it wasn't my birthday and I wanted a particular thing, I'd just try and get it out of my parents anyway. And so what I realized is if I asked for money for birthday and Christmas, then I could start to save a little bit. And so from about 7 through 9, every birthday and Christmas, I just asked everyone for money. I want cash. And so I used to get cash instead of presents. Yeah. And then what I used to do with the cash is I just gave it straight over to my dad, who eventually opened a bank account for me and eventually opened a ComSec brokerage account. It was in his name, but I was sort of the trustee for it because I wasn't of age, obviously. And so my first, I accumulated 500 Australian dollars. It was actually like 470, which was like my life savings. I was about 9 years old. And my first stock investment was Telstra shares. And they didn't do so well. I held them until I was maybe 17 years old.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know what? I didn't make money on that, much money on that trade. But what it did was it got my foot in the door. I got meat in the game. And I remember even from that young age, logging onto my CommSec account because I had the password. And I used to go on and I used to click around and read the reports. And just the act of, just the fact of having them there helped me to get in the right mindset. And so I just kept saving for years really, and just building up that portfolio. The first portfolio was on CommSec, Australian shares.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool that you had parents that supported you and helped you along with your journey. And then you mentioned before that you got into eBay. So tell us a bit about your early days with eBay and how that transitioned into creating infinite prosperity.
Mm-hmm. So it was, maybe grade 11, grade 12, grade 11 or grade 12, end of high school. A friend of a friend was somehow coming into Apple products. At the time, it was iPads and not iPads, iPods, the first generation iPod, and iPod Nano, if I can recall correctly. They were thin and they were colored. They were the pink and the blue and all the different colors. iPod Nano. He was coming into them, and somehow he was selling them to us for very cheap, and we were buying them all and then going and selling them back over on eBay. So my specialty at the time was building things that looked good online. So I knew a little bit about Photoshop. I knew how to make a sales page look pretty, and it looked better than all the rest. Nice. And so we were buying them for X price and then selling them, flogging them on eBay. And at one point there, sort of toward the end of high school, I was making like $1,000 a week in profit just from flipping these iPods. We realized though that eventually we found out that the source that we were getting them through, they were hot. They were stolen.
Oh, right.
And so that guy got in trouble. we were enough, down the chain that we never got in trouble or anything like that. But that business came to a real quick stop.
Yeah.
And so when you're 16 and you've been doing this thing on eBay making $1,000 a week, it feels like a little bit at the time. And so that was a shocker to have it cut off. And so what I realized I needed to do then is I needed to find a way to get products in so I could keep this thing going. And that's what started my eBay business. I had a company called Loops International, and I had some suppliers in Australia, but a lot of my products I ended up going through DHgate, which I think is still around.
Like the shipping company?
Well, it's like back in the day, DHgate was like a Chinese supplier, kind of like AliExpress, Alibaba, except that wasn't as big back then.
Yeah.
So I was going through DHgate and getting all kind of products, hair straighteners, T-shirts, branded things. Headphones.
Were you doing like trial and error to see what would
sell? A little bit of trial and error, a little bit of drop shipping where I could, but in large part I was shipping in and then just flipping it on eBay.
Yeah.
And that was the business I would say that I first started taking seriously.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then so how did that transition to IP?
Right. So then what happened is around that time I met Amy. Well, let me go back. No, I knew her from high school, but we were out of high school. Probably the first year out of high school, we started talking a little bit more. Amy's my former business partner who we ran Infinite Prosperity with. And she was interested in doing something a little bit different. And she came to me and she said, I want to learn what you're up to. And I taught her eBay. And in the end, I was looking to get out of eBay at that time and go and put all of my time and energy into Forex trading. That was at the very start of my Forex trading career. And so I ended up just giving her the business pretty much, giving her the sales pages, giving her the rest of my products that I had. And she took over and she did bloody good. She found out where I was getting my stuff from, and then she negotiated with them, hustled them down, and she was getting the products much cheaper than what I was getting, and ended up she was getting that thing to like making $4,000 a week.
Nice.
And I was pretty impressed. I'm like, when you had enough of doing this, let me teach you trading. And so she was my first trading student. And so I taught her that. I gave her some strategies to do. I set her charts up, and I said, go home and do this every day at this particular time. And she took that very seriously. And so two from two is what I had in my mind. I thought, this chick is she's pretty inspired. She's pretty motivated. And so I invested some more time and energy into her, and she did really quite well in a pretty short period of time.
In Forex trading?
In Forex trading.
Yeah.
And so Amy, by the way, is in my mine has been a little bit more probably aggressive than me personally, but in the early stages, that I think was to her benefit. And so very early in her FX, she had a bit of a couple of months worth of track record. She was doing very well, but she came across a $200,000 investment. And so early days, she took me into her office one day. We ended up getting an office in her mum's apartment, and in one of the spare rooms, and she had like a triple screen trading set up on this corner, and I had one on this corner, and we would trade there.
Hustle together.
Yeah, we worked together, hustled together, exactly right. Put the music on for the London Open. It was great. It was good times, actually. And she took me into her office. She was a surprise for me. She took me into her office, showed me her brokerage account, and it had something like in the order of $240,000 in it.
Right.
And I was like, what? I had just taught her like a few months ago, right? It was I don't know exactly how many months, but it was a huge amount. I said, where the hell did you get this from?
Yeah.
I think she started off putting around about 5 to 10 grand of her own money in.
Yeah.
She did well. She got the returns. She got the confidence that she needed, but then she went ham with the investor capital. So she showed me this figure, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And we were kids at the time, and I'm like, what's going on here? She's like, yeah, I'm trading investor capital now. Now, I don't know if it was that day or the day after. It just so happened that in the first week that she took the investor capital, there was a massive run on Swiss franc, if my memory serves me correctly. And she was up at one point like $20,000 in profit in the space of 24 hours of putting trades on. And I thought, gosh, man, this is crazy. What you need to do is put your screen recorder on and do a little video of what you've done here. And she did, and she recorded that video. I think it's still on the internet somewhere. And she recorded this video of explaining what she did and the profit that she was up like 15 or 20 grand at the time. And so from that got a little bit of traction on the video, and things just grew out from there. That got a lot of attention even in our circle.
Yeah.
And so shortly after that, what we'd have friends and people from school come over, and we'd be in our little office there learning to trade. And so we started teaching them. And that's where the idea came from, really. And so we'd send them home with little pen and pad homework, go to the site, get this software, you know what I mean?
Awesome.
And download this chart and all this kind of thing. And that's where it started, and that's where we realized, like, we've got something here. She was my first student who had some degree of success, and so I had confidence then as the teacher to be like, you know what, maybe we should put something together.
Yeah.
And that's when the idea of Infinite Prosperity was born.
Oh, very cool. And then you ended up with students all around the world, right?
By the time we finished that project, I think it was somewhere in the order of 60 countries. We got 60 countries now in School of Mastery too. So yeah, around about that 60 countries we hit. Yeah. IP was big though. I mean, we ended up getting in the order of 8,000 paying clients, and somewhere in the order of 80,000 leads and free students who knew about us and who were doing our free stuff and were on the list.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Oh, congrats. That's very cool. I didn't realize it was so massive.
Yeah.
Cool. So then from IP days, why did you transition out of Infinite Prosperity and into School of Mastery, which is more holistic 7 areas of life? Yeah.
A couple of reasons. I think the first thing that happened was I met John DiMartini, who's my mentor today, and he kind of fucked us up in 2015 when we first saw him. In a good way. In a good way, yeah. And what I learned from John is, well, as you know, you learn a different way of looking at the world, of looking at life, of looking at the universe, and it expanded my mind in this way that what I felt when I went home that I was doing was not quite cutting it. It wasn't quite filling my cup the way that it used to at that time. And that was sort of the first little thorn in the side in my mind. And to be honest, it took me years to have that flower out to the point where I left the company. It was 4 years or something. But there's that little idea of, am I doing everything that I can possibly do to have the most fulfilling time, to make the biggest contribution, have the biggest legacy, the best legacy that I possibly can do? And what I realized is I was looking around and what we were doing, and it was great, and many students had a lot of amazing results from IP, and we reached a lot of people with that. But a lot also, what was happening is we were attracting in the trading space, we were attracting in people who just wanted to get rich quick. They wanted to gamble. They didn't actually want to work that hard. They just wanted some sort of click button, passive income online strategy, right? and the demographic was sketchy. The industry itself is a little dicey. I'm not sure if you're,
I've seen lots of ads and lots of people being quite flashy to get people in, and so
Right.
then they're trying to, get rich quick.
Right, exactly. Look, what I learned also from being in the industry, because we ended up being affiliated with a broker who gave us our Australian financial services license, which we needed to run IP. And what we found out is that for all of Forex trading, for all retail traders, they have what's called a B book. And so really what it is for every dollar that a Forex trader signs up to a brokerage account and deposits $1 into their account, at the end of the day, 92% of that, 92 cents on the dollar ends up in the broker's pocket.
Wow.
Because what the broker does is just takes the opposite side of the trade, and they create these synthetic markets where the B-book traders are not even really trading the market. The broker's just the liquidity provider on the other side. They're literally betting against their clients. And so it's a huge conflict of interest. And while there is the occasional trader who breaks out and does really phenomenally well, the lion's share is just made up of people, in my perception, have a little bit of a fantasy about really what it takes. When I started to see that and slowly put all of the pieces of the puzzle together, I realized that, you know what, I probably have something more significant to contribute here. And so that's how I eventually started moving out of IP.
Yeah, right. And so tell us about IP now, and about School of Mastery now, and what you do there, and some of the beautiful stories that have come out of it already.
Yeah. I mean that it's a cool project, man. Like, so toward the end of IP, what was happening is I started putting a lot of my what I was learning into IP, and so IP started sort of evolving in that direction as well. But at the very end, look, the reason, I guess the final nail in the coffin, I left IP because we needed to do a whole course upgrade. And I realized that, God, man, I'm going to have to do all this work. And at the end of the day, I'd already started Mastermind in 2018.
Yeah.
And I'd already started doing these monthly masterclasses, building out the kind of content and teaching the kinds of things that I really wanted to teach. And by the time that we got to the point in IP where we realized we needed to do a course rebuild, it was actually at a time in my School of Mastery journey where I'd already done it all. I'd already built everything that I wanted to put into the new IP course, and so that was when I knew that, you know what, I'm gonna wipe the slate. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna walk away from it.
Yeah.
And it needs too much work, and I'm just gonna go and do my own thing with school. And so school, what we're doing is really focusing on not just the financial component, and certainly not just the trading component, but more of a wider range of areas, every area of life. And so we really wanted to have content on health, on wealth, on wisdom and mindset, on business as well, and not just trading business, but more service-based business, product-based business. I call it the 4-product empire. Relationships as well, and having a solid family life and building that wisely. And I'm also having a spiritual purpose as well, and social leadership. And so it's more of a universal personal development platform than what IP was ever going to allow us to do, being so restricted to the finance.
Yeah. And so I'm a member of your mastermind, and the content that you put out is so highly valuable, and you've got 700, nearly 800 students in there who you impact, and the content is incredible. So
Thank you.
what you're doing with there is amazing, and it's certainly having a lot of impact, which is just a bit more broader. It's impacting a lot of different areas of life, like you said.
Yep.
So tell us about your mentors. Who are your mentors now? You mentioned John DeMartini before. Is he your sole mentor, or do you have you had other mentors along the way?
Look, I've had many mentors. I think every time I read a book, there's some degree of a mentorship dynamic in there. Mm-hmm. But really, in real life, I've only had a handful, maybe 5 ever.
Do you think they're important?
I think that mentors have a role, definitely. I think that you can either learn things yourself by trial and error, but it's a slow way to do it. It's a much slower way to do it. You know, the way that I think of it is like this. If you go and study under a mentor who spent 10, 20 years perfecting some particular craft, and you can read their book, which, you know, they might have spent 2 years writing or 5 years writing, you know, or in the case of How to Win Friends and Influence People, like 20 years putting that together. You're going to learn a lot more in 8 hours than you could possibly do by going out there and learning everything yourself. Definitely mentorship has a role. It's an efficient way to learn. At the same time, I think there's some drawbacks and risks to having too many mentors, because I see a lot of people also have mentors who they look up to, and they placed on this crazy unreachable pedestal, and they compare themselves into them, and then they don't really get off the ground themselves.
Yeah.
And so you want to balance it. I like the idea of balancing, having mentors, but then also having students as well. Because when you learn something from a mentor, then you go and repackage and reword it. And if you can go and learn it to a degree where you can confidently teach it in your own words, then it has a number of benefits. One, you're balancing the equation and making sure that you're not just the consumer of information, but you're also a provider of information. But two, what it does is it also cements the lesson in, because when you can share something in your own words, you learn it more. It stays in the mind.
Yeah. 100%. I can understand how that dynamic plays out. I'm just learning that nowadays with my own mentorship, and it's really powerful helping other people.
Yep.
So do you still trade? Like what do you do for investing? If you're willing to share, it'd be great to know what your thoughts are around investing and why it's important to have investments, passive income.
Well, it depends on your goal, really. It depends on really what you want financially. What I say to my students is, you want to aim for a degree of financial independence where your investments can support your expenses. And so over time, if you go out there and you do a job, or you have a business, or you sell products, or you have some sort of an income from doing something that you love doing and serving people in the economy, you're going to have an income come in. Then what you want to do is automate a saving out into a savings account that you build up. And then what you want to do is go and have a system where every month or every 2 weeks you go and automatically have that invested. And over a long period of time, that compounds out. Eventually, over a long period of time, you want to get it to that, so that investment kitty, just the passive income component of it, you can pay for all of your expenses depending on how you want to live life. And so, to that degree, to that end, it's important. I find that a lot of people don't do it though.
Yeah.
So many people are not investing, or they're relying on their superannuation, their 401k, or in many cases, people are they're just not setting themselves up, and they're going to eventually have to rely on the kids, and sacrifice the next generation of wealth building. And so that's kind of crazy. So I think it's important, but it seems evident that not everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
What I do personally, the majority of what I'm doing now is going into Vanguard mutual funds. Okay, so it's a combination between their money market funds for my cash buffers, then some into bonds, and then some into their high growth funds. The high growth in Australia, we have one called the Life Strategy High Growth Fund, and over its lifetime, I think it's done somewhere in the order of 8-9% per year.
That's pretty good
since inception.
Yeah. Which
you can most certainly do better than that in trading.
Yeah.
But what I found through running IP and seeing the guys and girls who did much better than that is, what happens is then they do better, and then what they do is they don't really compound that necessarily, all of it. They pull some of it out, they go and spend some on lifestyle.
You're talking about reinvesting the dividends.
I'm talking about reinvesting, definitely. But what I'm saying is that if you go and have a higher annual return through doing things like trading, and you're pulling the cash out, you've got to pay the taxes on it, you're spending it on lifestyle. Now, if you actually track the long-term performance of these guys and gals, and actually how much they end up with, it very, very, very rarely exceeds just a very quiet passive investment. And as long as the real key is that as long as you're doing a job or a business that you really like doing, you love waking up in the morning and bloody doing that thing, you can live off that. And you can just then have your investments just on autopilot, just doing your 7 to 10% per annum is what I say.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I do now is just that. And to be fair, I'm doing a little bit more intricate. And so what I do is I set cash aside that isn't invested every month, and so I have a couple of different cash kitties like this building side by side. Now every month I'm buying the market, but I'm also building up a cash for the crash buffer as well. And so when things happen like this year in March, and we had a bit of a fall away, I dumped a little bit of cash into the market, and I rode the latest wave up. And so even though the market isn't quite at where it was, we're sitting on some nice profits this year already. And so that's a little bit what I do when the market falls below the long-term mean. I buy in, but usually I'm just buying in every month, just approximating the mean of the market. And then what it allows me to do is just focus on the business.
Yeah. Focus on serving people.
Exactly right. I can to double my income from business could be done in a couple of, I wouldn't say weeks. It could be done a lot quicker than going and doubling your investment returns.
Yeah.
And so I may as well focus on that.
Plus you impact more people when you do that.
Plus you impact more people. Plus it's more sustainable. Plus you're learning new skills, so that my whole thing also is like, no matter what the market condition is, no matter what's happening on the planet, whether it's a pandemic or a boom phase, you want to be able to adapt and evolve and learn how to thrive in any condition. If you can thrive in any time, then you have an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your investment strategy a little bit. And so you was telling us a bit before about how you spend a lot of your time filming and creating products and services and upskilling. So what does a day in the life of Lewis Mocker look like, aside from the vinos at night?
Well, we go to bed pretty early. I love being in bed by 9:30 or so. It depends, but sometimes I'm up a bit later. But then we wake up early to bed, early to rise. My dad used to say, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And so we like to wake up early. First thing we do, Robin and I do, is we go and do a little bit of work. We do the emergency work overnight, get on our computers. And then we go to coffee.
What do you mean emergency work? Like emails or?
Emergency. We mean like emails, things like, someone emails in and say, I need access, or I've lost my access.
Fires,
Putting out, little things like that. It's not really emergency. And approving people for this or that, or making, this kind of thing. Things that need to be actioned relatively quickly. We do that before we go out. And then we go get the coffee. We do a little breakfast club. Yeah. And lately we've been doing that in Tessie, which we love. And what we do, we pull up there and we have a beautiful park, beautiful view, and next to the water, and have a little coffee in the morning, a little bit of a snack sometimes.
In the Tesla?
Yeah, it's great. And we eat literally 30% of our meals now. I reckon 1 in 3 we have in the Tesla. Literally every day we have a meal in the Tesla.
Cool.
It's a comfortable little area to do it. We've got the aircon, we've got the Netflix, we've got the YouTube and all the thing.
Yeah.
It's really good. And then we come home and do a bit of work. So this morning, for example, I had a module plan, and so I filmed. I've got the pen all over my finger still. Do a little bit of filming, do a little bit of editing, and then I got to send my dose of mastery, my daily newsletter out at 5 p.m. So I usually do that from.
You write them daily?
4 to 5. At the moment, I am.
Yeah.
Because I only started. I'm only on dose 10 today, I think it is. At the moment, I am, but I will. What I'm going to do is bank a bunch so that I don't have to do it every day. And then. Once that's sent out, we like to watch the sunset and catch up do a debrief for the day, and have some dinner with Rob and get back into bed again, do it again.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, honestly, pretty boring. Like we have a pretty regimented life.
Scheduled.
Yeah, but now we've got this. We're doing a vlog, three vlogs a week on YouTube, right?
Yeah, what's the goal with that?
Well, it's called Life with Lewis and Robin, and we're trying to. What we really want to do is get a little bit of a documentation here of how we're living. And so, when we eventually have kids, they can see, what was going on in the years leading up to their birth and all this kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a family legacy. Also, it's a little bit of, personal branding, getting out there, inspiring people and things like this. But it's a little challenging because our lives are pretty boring, really.
We did it for 30 days straight, and it was, we were like, okay, how can we make this different and different angles? And
it's challenging.
It is, yeah.
Unless you've got one of these buddies. If you're if you're full-time traveling, it's easy.
Yeah.
And the vlogs are great too, because everyone loves a travel vlog.
Yeah.
But the truth is, if you're just working, gosh, it's tricky to come up with something every day that's good. But your vlog was good, I saw.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, I can't take the credit for editing. We did have an editor, but we did put the content together each day and send it off to him each night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have these challenges though. You find that after a bit of time, it becomes the norm and it just becomes a part of the routine. And I think that that's important, that when you're expanding and pushing the comfort zone, it feels uncomfortable for a little bit and then it's the norm. And then you push again, the norm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So how does that work with you and your Lamborghinis? I've been following you, knowing you for 6 years now, and you had the M3 and then the SRT, and now you've got the Lamborghini as well as the X. So a lot of people aspire to have a supercar, me in particular.
Yeah.
And I love them because they're different and they're beautiful to drive. So how do you find the Tesla and how people treat you? Do they treat you differently? And what is it like owning one?
Honestly, the truth is you acclimate to it very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so, look, the Tesla it's pretty quiet. I mean, like no one really looks or takes photos or anything. The Lambo, on the other hand, is every traffic light that you pull up to, you got to make sure that you're not picking your nose or doing, seriously. And sometimes you forget. But every time at the traffic light, either the car next or people, people have their cameras out and they're filming it and everything. It's a big attention grabber, that one. But it's been great. I mean, you got to have a certain kind of personality for that, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
If you don't like being in the sort of center of attention, you don't want to get a Lambo's not probably your car of choice.
Yeah.
But I love having them both, actually. They're beautiful contrasts because they're literally polar opposites. And so I love having both. One is low and loud, and the other one's big and tall and quiet and soft. The Tesla's faster. To 100, I think the Tesla's faster.
Yeah.
We haven't drag raced them yet, but maybe for a video one day.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But the Tesla, I think, is faster. Yeah.
Yeah, and how does it help with business? I know that you mentioned that sometimes having a luxury car can help with meeting like-minded people.
Maybe in 2012, I think there was a thing where if you bought a supercar, it would give you, like a lot of esteem and social credit and this kind of thing. And I think we used it in marketing as well, and it was definitely effective. I think now it's getting a little bit more taboo because sort of everybody kid with a YouTube channel is now getting a Lambo or something like that. So it's a little bit more cheesy now. If anything, I think it can actually undermine the brand if you're too brash with the, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
With the showing off of it. I like to think that I'm relatively tasteful. I don't, blow it up just for the sake of posting it up and this kind of thing. However, like I said, once recently, I think it definitely opens doors. We get invited to events that we literally wouldn't get invited to, and at those events we meet people who are moving, shaking, kicking goals, doing things, and just through that part of it alone, we've made friends. I'll give you an example. The Pajama Bosses, they were neighbors of ours who we lived together for years and years and years, and we did not know they lived there, and they probably didn't know we lived there. Anyway, I got the Lambo in 2016, and when I drove past them one day, they took notice of it, and that was all it took in our little basement downstairs. Is all that what it took, and they were inspired then to say, hey, next time we see them in the basement, let's pull them over and introduce ourselves to Robin and I, and we did, and we made great friends, and still we're friends to this day. And so there's like just one little relationship and of many that we've created just from having this damn car. Now, what's interesting with them is that we're in a very similar niche. And so back then when we met, we caught up and they gave us a couple of different business ideas. We acted on one of them. Yeah. And specifically that idea was to create a 4-part video series into our main product. And it's what they were doing with ClickFunnels, and they were in Russell Brunson's group and all this. And they told us, do this, it will be really great. Now, that one funnel, in a very short period of time, we made somewhere in the order of $350,000 or something like this. And I don't know if we would have done that if it weren't for that relationship. Yeah. And so there's just one example of how, the car is actually, there is a return that you can get if you're sharp with how you're using it and how you're optimizing for the relationships that you can build and networking and all that kind of thing. Yeah. There's a real return.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if it's tasteful, then you can definitely make waves and make friends with that. So we've spoken a lot about the incredible things you've done in your life. When's been a time that you have done something or had a learning experience? I won't call it a mistake, but something you've learned from it and you got a valuable lesson from it.
Something that I've learned something. I wouldn't say I've ever... Mistakes are an interesting thing. It's like in the moment that you make it, if you don't extract the lesson out of it, the benefit out of it, you're going to think it's a mistake. It's hard for me to come up with a lot of them. The things that I've done that have set me back, I've seen the benefit. I've seen the lesson that I needed. Sometimes it's been in cases where I've been naive. For example, I've been naive definitely going into deals and thinking that someone else had my interest at the top of their mind, which is usually not true. They want to look after themselves first and foremost. And I don't think that that's a sinister thing. I think that's just human nature. You got to look after your own power unit first. And so things like this, I've definitely in the past been too naive and a little bit blinded. Other times maybe too skeptical and missed opportunities. I've done that many times in investing, in trading, in relationships, partnerships, deals, opportunities. Many different things.
What about fun? Oh, what were you going to say?
All I would say is that the real learning curve, if I could really summarize it, of all the aggregate of all the things that I've learned, is that if you're too far in one direction, the learning journey will be back toward the middle. If you're too skeptical and fearful, you're going to miss out on opportunities that are real. If you're too naive and greedy, too far out the other direction, then you're going to get into deals that aren't real. And one, you're going to get eaten by the opportunist. The other, you're going to miss the opportunity. I think the aggregate of all the things that I've learned is to try to govern myself, bring myself back into the center, bring myself back into balance. And if you can do that, then you don't usually need to manifest a situation where you need to get a lesson.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. What about loss of money? Like where you have been too greedy and you've lost money and it's brought you back into balance.
You know what?
Can you remember specific?
You know what? My whole journey from 7 years old, saving my Christmas money, has been really, my finances have been exceptionally smooth.
Sounds like it.
And that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I haven't had these huge, big overnight wins, and I haven't had huge, big overnight losses. I've been in fact, I did the standard deviation on my total daily cash flows recently, because every day I have a spreadsheet where I tally all my cash and all the accounts day by day, and I chart it out. And I did the standard deviation of the volatility of it, and it's insanely low.
Right.
Like my max drawdown of my total liquidity and my total net worth this year, even through COVID, has been incredibly low. It's quite ridiculous, actually. I'm probably a little too low. It's probably an indicator that I'm being a little bit on the conservative side, and I could afford to be a bit more aggressive. But I wish that I had a cool story of a loss. But I even when I was trading and during those times, I set very diligent risk management protocols. I never violated them, and it was every loss was the worst case scenario was calculated ahead of time, and so there wasn't really anything there. I really don't have a great story about that, but at the same time, I don't really have huge overnight successes to talk about either.
Yeah.
It's just been a gradual accumulation, gradual chipping away, and I tend to like that.
Yeah.
I tend to like the stability that offers.
Yeah, I think it sounds ideal to be more in balance than have these, volatile wins and volatile losses, because then it's
true. For the way that I would like to live life, a bit more of a centered and balanced way, and not so eccentric. At the same time, I hear about these guys and girls who do these businesses and they have these big exits and they, bank 20 million, 50 million in one pot. I'm like, geez, golly gosh, that's not a bad way to do it either. I mean, there'll be a benefit to doing it that way too. But I think if I did a big exit and banked a bunch in one hit, I'd take a day off to have a wine or something, but I'd get back to work, really.
Yeah. I think that's the best life you can create, is one where we only spent one night in Brisbane, Thursday night for our anniversary.
Yep.
And I remember sitting on the side of the pool and we'd finished sending our clients messages and we looked out at the pool. It was a beautiful day in Brisbane in winter. And Jacinda looked at me and she said, "Are you ready to get back to work?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go home."
Oh my God.
It's like midday. I was bored.
Oh my God.
It's like 2 hours.
No, I can't stand it. I can't. Going away, it's not the life, man. It's like,
so bored.
It's like, I made this joke. It's like how the thing is like laptop lifestyle and all this kind of thing. And that sells well, it sells the dream. But anytime you've actually ever done that, it's tremendously boring. Yeah. It's like, if I'm really, really honest, I've had the times when you're working by the poolside, maybe in Bali, and I'm sipping on this alcoholic coconut. I took a photo for Instagram, posted up, blows up, millions of likes and all this thing. Oh God, that wasn't so great. The truth is, the sun is beaming down on the laptop and there's a tremendous amount of glare.
It's overheating.
I can't see the laptop screen properly. The laptop fans are humming and harring and the laptop's having a terrible time. Sand has fallen into the hinge of the laptop and it's gritty and grindy. I'm dehydrated because I've been smashing alcoholic coconuts all day. It's not actually the dream that you think if you're actually there.
Yeah.
And the truth is, having an office that you love going to, like a little workspace at home that's safe and secure and comfortable and efficient, lots of desk space. Oh my God, I can't wait to get home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't wait to get home to that thing.
Yeah, we were the same. We thought we'd be there for the day, you know, taking some time out because we'd been going hard for the whole month and we were bored as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah. So you help a lot of people, and you've had a huge impact on my life and many others who I know personally. Why do you care about helping other people?
Well, I'll say this. Early on, it wasn't always that way. Early on, one of the most significant experiences and things I can remember was probably 2013, about 6 to 8 months into the start of Infinite Prosperity. And we launched this thing, and got an email from one of my students, because back in those days I did all the support emails myself, literally replied to every single one. And got an email from one of our students, and I got it saved at home, and it was a very long email, which usually I dread reading, but I started reading this thing, and it was basically the student was explaining, like, 6 months earlier I was on the edge of committing suicide, and there were 2 failed attempts, but I was really on that ledge. And he said that through the last 6 months of learning through the Infinite Prosperity, getting his finances in order, having some hope, setting goals, which is one of our modules, having some sort of clear vision for the future that gave him hope, gave him something to look forward to, gave him some meaning and some structure in his life, completely transformed him. And he kind of said if it wasn't for IP, you know, he might not be here. And when I read that, I got goosebumps on my arm, and I realized, whoa, man! Look, this is a business. I'm having a good time doing this. I wasn't quite aware of the impact, the impact that it was making in the lives of the students until I read that. And so I had a little bit of a shift after that. I realized that what I was doing here, it's not just it's not just an online business. It's you're really having an impact on people's lives. And I started taking it after that a little bit more seriously as well. And so that was a big one. And then over the years, those kinds of messages just keep coming in. And so it's very rewarding to receive that. To know that your work, your hard work, is actually being received and used and integrated, and it's actually making a real impact on real people's lives, and getting some feedback on that, it's very rewarding, very fulfilling. I think that, to be fair, everyone has the desire to want to help.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone's aware of exactly how they can help, but the desire to want to help is in there. Look, the other thing that I would say is that I wouldn't go so far as to, post me as this, I'm just a martyr and I just want to help everyone, like a Mother Teresa. Look, the truth is, let me put it like this. If you wanted to be, let's go the opposite way. If you wanted to be like the craziest narcissist, living like an absolute royalty, living like a king, and you wanted to make all the money and all this sort of thing, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
How would you do that? Well, you could go and get the money with force and steal the money so that you can go and live well. But the thing is, when you do that, someone else is going to get a bigger stick and come back and take the money back off you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be just warring all your life. The other way that you could do is you could manipulate and trick people mentally out of the cash and scam them and all this kind of thing. But then what's going to happen is you're going to get locked up. You're going to get thrown in jail, and you're not going to be able to enjoy the money.
Yeah.
And so when you really factor that, when you really think about that, the only real way to live the best life that you possibly can is to actually go and help people get something that they want.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. That's sustainable. The only way to do it is to actually think about how can I go and help people solve problems that they're having in their life, or help them to achieve goals and dreams that they're having in their life. And if you can do that efficiently, then you have a transaction and you can make the income. And if the transaction actually closes and they're happy for having given you the money, then it's a closed deal.
Yeah.
You have a real deal, and you can actually build a lot of wealth in that way, and that's sustainable, and it's going to last, and someone's not going to come and rob it from you because you didn't rob it from anyone. So I say that, in terms of this, wanting to help people, it's the most efficient way to get what you want.
Yeah.
Just help people get what they want.
I think
it's just efficiency.
I think it's also a fantastic model that you have online. A lot of businesses are physical businesses, and that's fantastic, and they may make 200 million a year, but what's the profit margins on those? And it's also quite complex doing that. Plus what you're saying about wanting to help people, they still, the people that you teach, right? You've got 800 students or thereabouts. They still have to take that information, ingest it, take it in, take the time to learn, and two, actually action the information. So whilst you're providing it, then there's a certain element where people need to action it as well.
Of course, absolutely.
So what do you say to people who like to put out there, will coaches become coaches because, or teachers become teachers because they don't, you haven't had a business before, or a multi-million-dollar business. Who are you to teach? What do you say to those people?
Well, it depends on it depends on what your marketing is. If you're going out and saying, look, I'm going to help you grow a multi-million-dollar business, and you've never made a multi-million-dollar business, then there's a little bit of a what's the word? There's a little of incongruency with your offer.
Yeah.
And you're going to probably, in that state, feel the imposter syndrome, feel like I'm worried about being called out for being a fraud because you actually haven't done it. And so in the same way that I don't go out, there's some mentors who actually, their niche is to take businesses from 10 million a year to 100 million a year. Mm-hmm. And so that's their thing, and they can only do that if they've done it before. Now, so in my case, I don't go and teach people how to make 100 million a year, because I haven't made 100 million a year business yet.
Yeah.
And so you can only teach your way down, but everything that you've really truly grown to, you can take that and teach down, because there's people 2 steps below you who would benefit from you. It's a real service teaching people who are 2 steps down to help them get to where you are in a more efficient way, so that they don't have to do all the trial and erroring.
Yeah.
And I think if you're being authentic with that, then there's no issue. Yeah, you'll still get haters and say like, oh, I know what you were trying to say. I think it was like, if you can't do, you teach.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always going to be haters.
You're always going to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine.
So what is your legacy, Lewis? You talk a lot about building a business and a life that lives on beyond yourself, and creating something for your children and grandchildren and so forth. So what's your personal legacy? I
have many, actually. I have a few. But, one of my more significant ones that we talk about and plan quite a lot recently, actually, because we're looking at starting our family in the next 4 years or so, is a wealth legacy and a company legacy. And so, for example, with our finances, we have a very intricate family wealth structure that is set up to have at least 100-year long plan. And so Robin's wealth is going in and my wealth is going in. We're joining it. We're accumulating it, never to be touched for 100 years. And after that, if we get older, as it starts growing, we have a kid, it's going to go even longer down. And so really what I think would be fantastic is when I die, is to have an estate there, to have some kind of financial entity that I can set instructions for it, so that I can go and then have that financial entity go and keep serving on the planet after I'm dead. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be cool. And in fact, every time I think about that and take action to put that in place, it's very inspiring. And I find that it actually helps you come up with ideas for the day-to-day. It helps you come up with business ideas now. Mm-hmm. I feel like the longer you set your goals out for, the easier things flow in the day-to-day. It's the old thing, like, I don't know if I've told this analogy. If you're in a tractor and you're plowing a field, and you want to do straight lines. And if what you do is if you look at the end of the row and you drive, it's going to be relatively a straight line, easily, effortlessly straight line. But if you're only looking sort of down here at the grass in front of you, right in front of the tractor, you can't see where you are, and so you end up doing a wiggly wobbly line. Same with life. I think the longer that you set the goals out, the smoother and the straighter you end up running.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my financial ones, to build a financial entity that can keep serving after my time is done. And the School of Mastery is the start of my informational legacy as well. I asked myself the question, like, if I had 24 hours to live and I had a concrete tablet and I could only had that bit of space, like an A4 size bit of paper, but in concrete, what would I etch into it as the final words that I had? The culmination of everything that I had ever learned, summarized.
Wow.
And I sometimes think about that, and I try to draw it out. And really, what it is it's the sequence of what I've built out in School of Mastery. Number 1, find purpose. Number 2, build a business around that purpose, so that you can literally wake up every morning and do something that you love, that serves people and gets you financially set up. Mm-hmm. Number 3, manage the wealth, so that you can build and have a family wealth goal that's longer than your life, so that you can have more money at the end of your life than life at the end of your money, kind of thing, like what most people do. And it just goes down like this. And so when I put my concrete tablet together, that was my initial structure for how I wanted to roll out the School of Mastery modules, and that's what I've done. So we're 25 months into that now, and at the end of it, I think it's going to be a pretty cool piece of work. I think I'm up to 65 hours worth of video now on it, and in all the key points, there's something like 100 or 200,000 words worth of key points and written material, something in the order of like 100 different tools and this kind of thing. But all of it combined is I wanted to create the most significant and empowering body of work to help someone go and empower their life, and in the best way that I knew how. And that's what School of Mastery is. And so that's going to be a legacy as well. And eventually I'll have people come on and manage it. But I think, the two big ones I think of is School of Mastery and the financial entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, super inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Is there any last words you'd like to leave the audience? It's got vlog in my mind. The audience for finding purpose in their life, for building a legacy like you were just talking about.
Yeah. I think that there's something that everyone has that if you look really closely is calling to you. And the real thing that I would say with choosing the path to take is it's not the path necessarily that makes you happy and joyful and giddy and excited, because generally what happens is there's another side to that and you swing into sadness and depression and all the thing. The real purpose is the thing that you've kind of already been doing your whole life. When I did my purpose process and I really analyzed what I was showing up and doing in my life, I realized that it was the things like teaching. It was the things like reading from my little National Geographic and repackaging and rewriting it in such a way that I had my own seasoning on it, and then taking that and selling it. And I realized that from day one I've been doing that. Then through all of my life with the porn CDs and everything, it was something like that. It was repackaging information. And so for me, I can see that that's what my life has been dedicated to since the beginning. And it's when I do it, life flows. Wealth comes easily, relationships flow easily. I'm inspired by it. I don't have actually the highs and lows, the happy, the sad, elation, depression dynamics that run me down. I'm just centered with it. And so I think everyone has that really inside. And I think look for that, because when you unlock that, everything else flows. Everything else is way more easy. You're more resilient with the business. You're more consistent. You show up. You're willing to put up with the bullshit with it. It's a better way to do it. Find the purpose and then go and serve people. Fall in love with earning is what I talked about today in a video. Earning is the lost art, and people want to win money and all this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But really to fall in love with actually the process of going out and doing a service and getting paid for it, very few people want to do it, it seems, these days. Yeah. But if you can do that, you'll have such a more empowered life. And if it's doing something that you love, then you'll be inspired by it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lewis, for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate your time and your wise words.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.